can do anything, but not everything. And you need to remember that, because if you are like me, you dream about conquering the world. Anytime anything interesting floats your way, you're like, I can do it. I'm going after it. I'm going to make this my new passion project. And because of it, I have left a lot of projects just laying on the table. In large part because I just lost focus. And so, as you continue to dream your dream, and you continue to develop a world in your head that brings you nothing but happiness, being able to do anything you love to be able to do, just know that there is not a thing you can't do. You just can't do it all at once. And so really hone in and focus on what your immediate goals are. For me, I've been wanting to do a podcast for years. I've thought about anything and everything that I could do it about. And I realized that the more I thought about it and the more broad my dream became, the more overwhelmed I became in trying to do it. So here I am, focusing on one episode at a time. Here I am, focusing on just this one post at a time. And more importantly, focusing on trying to create a 10, 15, 20-minute podcast that can contribute to better mental health, that can contribute to encouragement, that can contribute to ultimately helping myself be the person that I want to be. And so my ultimate goal is to be able to look back years from now and for someone to tell me that what they heard me say encouraged them to the point where they achieved greatness. And I realized that, like, for me, although there's so many aspirations that I have and so many, projects that I have dipped my hands in to be able to do, I've got to focus on one thing at a time. And so I give you the same kind of encouragement. Figure out what will make progress for your aspirations and focus on that right now. It's always about progress over complacency, because the more that you continue to overwhelm yourself with everything you have going on, the more stagnant you're going to be. Focus. Progress over complacency. Hey everybody, welcome to the Monday edition of the Batmandrew Podcast, and we're continuing to kind of go through the last 5 or 6 years of just my life personally, what kind of led to this point of starting the podcast, and more importantly, just kind of talking about kind of what kind of whirlwind it was ever since like 2019, getting ready, and obviously this episode we're talking about COVID in 2020, and honestly, COVID was the least of the things that happened in my life in 2020. And I'm going to say something that probably a lot of people are going to disagree with and not going to be happy with, but we made COVID out to be a much bigger deal than what it had to be. There were obviously people who thought it was the worst thing that happened in their lifetime, and that's no disrespect to anybody who lost someone during COVID. I don't want to be rude and disrespectful to that by any means, but it also wasn't near as bad as some people made it out to be. But it was worse than what a lot of other people made it out to be. I mean, I live in Oklahoma, so there was a lot of people who were against vaccinations, against, everything that was related to COVID. And I think that, at the end of the day, those people were a little bit wrong too. I kind of find myself falling somewhere in the middle. And I will tell you this, again, the impact, I didn't lose anyone from COVID, and I'm thankful for that. But it made a significant impact on my life in a couple of ways. 2020, I was still working at Mazio's. I was the general manager for Mazio's, and if you remember when the pandemic started, kind of what all went into who was decided who was going to work, who wasn't going to work, what places were open, that kind of stuff. I was in the food industry, so obviously we remained open. But a lot of things like happened during that time. The most significant thing that happened to me during 2020 is that my wife and I had our child. We have an only kid. His name's Grayson. If you follow me on any kind of social media, I post about him a lot. I love my boy, and super grateful for everything that his mom does for us and provides for our family. We'd be lost without her 100%. But during that time, because of COVID, I couldn't go to any doctor's visits. I couldn't be there to support my wife in any of the any kind of the medical procedures outside of just the birth. Like, I was there, but even then, they told me, if you leave the hospital, leave the room, then you can't come back in. And although I can understand and appreciate the fact that not a lot of people knew what was going on with COVID, and there was a lot of uncertainty, there was also a lot of, again, overreaction to it. And in hindsight, looking back at it, it was frustrating. It was really frustrating to not be able to be a part of, the visits, doctor visits, and things like that for Scarlett. But obviously, we can't change that now. But going through the course of the year, a couple of really interesting things kind of happened for me. So, I worked for Mazio's all of 2020, and COVID was a shit show from a customer standpoint, and we certainly did our best to be able to adapt and go with the flow, but it also didn't help to have customers who weren't very understanding of the process and what was going on. But despite all the negativity and all the shit that you saw from people, I will tell you that I also saw some of the best in people. There were a lot of customers who really would come out. They would leave large tips for the staff. They were killing them with kindness, and they understood the circumstances, and they were appreciative. And to be honest, that's really cool to have seen some really good people during such a hard time. So during 2020, I had started wanting to be able to go to cons, sell my tourography photos, kind of build that business. But when all the cons shut down, I had nothing left with photography other than actually photographing real people. And surprisingly enough, I built a decent photography business despite the fact that we had to social distance. We, it was hard to get people out. All the stuff that went into, the restrictions of COVID. I was very fortunate to have actually put together a pretty successful business. And I had some help along the way. It certainly wasn't just me. A lot of people who supported and everything. And I'm super grateful for that. But it also, as an artist and a creator, and honestly just as a person, just in general, I learned a lot about what kind of people I wanted to associate myself with and what kind of people I didn't. I built relationships with people that I thought were friends that honestly just they weren't. And I'm not going to name any names. I'm not here to do that on this podcast. But I'll tell you this, people will either drain you or they'll pour into you. And they normally don't do both. So just be mindful of that, and more importantly, be mindful of where you fall in that, because I'm the kind of person I will pour and pour and pour. And I realized right at the beginning of 2020 that I'm really making friendships and relationships with people who do nothing but drain me. And it took a little bit of a toll on my mental health. That was kind of, if I looking back at it, that was kind of just the start of my decline for my mental health. And so I do think that, through the course of 2020, we had to learn to rely on people and build connections with people, especially away from being able to spend time with them in person. And for me, I just chose some of the wrong people. And it is what it is. I can't go back and change it, but definitely can learn from it. And so as I was building my photography business, I started shooting cosplayers, started shooting pinup models, started shooting family portraits, weddings, all that kind of stuff. And again, I was super thankful to be able to build up that part of my business. But I do think that I also, again, I learned from a professional standpoint just how hard it is to operate your own business. One of the things that is just, and if you're a business owner, you get it, you never stop spending money. And it's ridiculous. Like, there's always something that you need. And, trying to prep for a baby, working a job that I absolutely hated, and then trying to build my own business, like it was expensive. And looking back at it, if I could do it differently, there probably would be a few things that I would have done, differently during 2020. But it all kind of led me to this, so I guess it was worth it, right? I will tell you that when it came to photography, I tried to be very well-rounded in the art and the content that I created. But I absolutely hated the fact that I wasn't creating content for myself. Because I was trying to build a business, I had to really take every photo shoot that I could, right? I needed the money, and I created so much content that I look back at it now, I'm just like, I don't like it. I don't want to post it. I'm not proud of it. And I think that's what kind of led me into going into 2025 is the fact that, I'm not taking money from people anymore in regards to photo shoots and stuff like that. I'm creating content that I want to create. I'm working with people that I want to work with. And sure, I kind of have a little bit of a thing where I'll trade projects for projects. So there might be something someone wants to shoot and I'll be the photographer for it or the videographer for it, knowing that they're going to return the favor for a project of mine. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that I just did a lot of photography work and let my work be going out there into the public for people who I just didn't like and didn't want to associate with. And, it's hard, but I just think I'm not going to make some of those same mistakes again, right? So, but aside from photography, Mazio's, look, I will tell you this, I have zero interest whatsoever to associate myself with that company anymore, but I will tell you that I actually think that there were a lot of things that they handled pretty well during COVID. I think that there were a lot of mistakes that they made, but they probably weren't the only ones. I'm sure a lot of businesses were making those same mistakes. And I think the biggest one that happened to us in 2020, we had an employee, and I won't say his name. He committed suicide, and it was kind of the first experience that I had ever had as a manager trying to deal with that kind of thing in the workplace. And I remember that I found out on a Friday morning, and Friday, and for most pizza places, is the busiest day of the week. I found out on a Friday morning, and I remember having to tell everyone over and over and over again as they came in for their shift, and how devastating it was to see, because we had a very close group. The employees were really close to each other. A lot of them actually went to school with each other, and I was willing to work the restaurant by myself if I had to, if it meant that they wanted to be able to take some time off. And to my shock and surprise, every employee came into work that night and wanted to work together. They were very close, and at a time like that, you want to be with people who you care about, people who you love, and who are your family. And it was a super proud moment for me as a manager to know that the people they wanted to be around were the people that they worked with. And I think that shows about how close they were and how much compassion they had for each other. And so we rallied together. We got past it. We had heard that, so after after he passed away, and after the funeral and all that kind of stuff, I was on Facebook, and he popped up under people I might know. And so I clicked on his profile and started looking through his feed, and his birthday was a few months prior. And his birthday wish, people put on fundraisers, like raise money for this charity or whatever. He had asked for, I think it was like $150 for people to raise money for suicide awareness. And there were no likes, no comments, and his charity bar was $0. And no one had responded to it. And it honestly broke my heart, because I think that he no one knew like what he was struggling with. In fact, at the restaurant, he was one of the most charismatic people that we had, and clearly he was struggling with some internal demons. And considering his passing, him taking his life, the fact that he was asking for charity for suicide awareness, we all just kind of overlooked it. And so when I saw that, I reached out to my staff. And you got to understand, a lot of my team were high schoolers, early college kids. But I reached out to the team and I said, hey, this is what I saw. I'd like to put together some donations in his name for suicide awareness, present it to his family. And I assumed with the 20 people I had working that maybe if I could get a couple $100 would be great. And so I told them that I would match whatever it was that they were able to get together. And this group of high school kids, they ended up raising, I think it was like $500 or $600 together, and through donations of people on the staff. And so I matched it, and we let Mazio's know what we were going to do, and they said they were going to match whatever we raised. I don't know if they ever did. I'm not saying that they didn't, but they never talked to us about it. We sent them everything. We donated the money. It wasn't, in this scenario, fuck Mazio's. This was about wanting to do something for this kid who worked with us, and I was super proud of my team for that. From a leadership standpoint, that was hard, and I think that unfortunately that was not the first time, or excuse me, that wasn't the last time that I've dealt with something like that in my career. And we'll talk about that a little bit in more episodes. But listen, I don't know if one person's watching this or 1,000. I don't know. I don't know who's going to be watching this video, and I just want to say that like your act of kindness can go a long way. The night that he took his life, I closed the restaurant with him, and I just, not that I don't blame myself, and I'm not making this about me. I just wish I would have paid more attention, and so maybe I could have saw something. And ultimately, he made his decision, and I think that there are probably a lot of people in our lives who are struggling. I know the last few years I have definitely struggled. And so your act of kindness can go a long way to making an impact. But more importantly, like checking in on someone, seeing how they're doing, and just making sure that you're an active part of their lives. Even if that doesn't mean that you have to spend all your time around them or with them, but it does, like, it does go a long way to just check in on people and see how they're doing, and seeing if they need an outlet. And if you're not capable of being that outlet, there are outlets out there that you can encourage them to go to. And so, enough of that. Just know, man, like, I've thought about you a lot since it happened. And just on behalf of the people who you left behind, we love you and we miss you. So, all right, so let's kind of go through what else happened in 2020. So, obviously, we talked about Grayson. That was my and my wife's little boy. He just turned 4, so we definitely had a COVID baby. And honestly, like, he's such a freaking asshole, but he's such a blessing, and I'm super thankful for the family that I have and that God provided me with, and I am certainly undeserving of it. I will tell you that. But looking back at 2020, I honestly, it wasn't as bad of a year as it was for others, for me anyways, but it was a roller coaster. But COVID aside, a lot of great things that happened. Surprisingly enough, I didn't even catch COVID through 2020. It wasn't actually till that next year when COVID was actually on the downcline that I finally caught it. But, that time at Mazzio's, again, I don't give 2 cents about the company itself, but the people that I worked with and built relationships with and things like that, like those people were good people. And, if you're watching this, I wish you nothing but the best. I hope that I made an impact on you guys, and I hope that you made an impact on me. And so some of my favorite nights in my career were Friday nights. We're a kitchen full of our employees were working, blaring Taylor Swift music and hearing all the complaints about my playlist. And so thank you guys for some of the memories. And again, that was kind of my 2020. And so some roller coasters, but it was all worth it to be able to have my little boy. So, we'll kind of keep on going through the series. We'll tackle 2021 next. And, happy day to you guys. Live your best life.